Hello, Dr. Highfish here, and as you can see, I am filming a sketch chat video for Amalgamate for the first time in apparently a year. I did not know that until I checked the YouTube video library on this channel, and I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, sorry about that. I cannot believe it has been a year. Obviously I've done like other art for Amalgamate, during the year, but like I haven't like sat down and like dedicated time to an actual sketch chat video like this in a while. I've just been so freaking busy with stuff, taking on too many things. But anyway, and this one is not just a sketch chat though. This is also a Q&A video, so I asked the Amalgamate Discord server if they had any questions that they'd like me to answer while I work on some Amalgamate art, and they had a lot of questions actually. So because of that, I will answer as many as I can. I'm gonna try to get to all of them, but if this video is starting to look like it's like gonna go past an hour, I'll probably like break it in half and then keep filming, like, just have like a part 2 just so this video doesn't get too out of control, especially because I am a serial rambler. I am notorious for getting off topic or talking way too long about things, but anyway, first things first, just want to say there will be spoilers in this video for Amalgamate chapters 1 through 19. I have a feeling a lot of people who watch this, they'll probably see it after chapter 20 is already out, but since I do plan on putting this video up first, I will not be spoiling, yeah. I don't know why that sounded weird. Spoiling? I won't be spoiling any of chapter 20 in this video. But yeah, spoilers for 1 through 19, including, like the end of chapter 19, which I assume a lot of people are going to want me to talk about. But yeah, just wanted to put that warning out there. And then also, as far as the content of this drawing goes, I just also wanted to mention that I asked the server, like, okay, so do you all want me to draw something cute or something sad or something like neutral and in between? And it seemed like people wanted cute. And I think it's because of the way that chapter 19 ended. Like, yeah, cute would be a nice change of pace, huh? So cute it is. I've seen some fan art going around a lot lately, just like, V3 art in general of Kaito and Kokichi just like sleeping in together, like being cute, and every time I see one of those, I'm like, Amalgamate goals right there. So I really wanted to draw like one of my own, because it's just so cute. It's so nice to see them like just like happy and peaceful and like, not having the worst time imaginable. So yeah, I also decided to be super extra, and I printed out the questions that people asked me on the server, in part so that I could put them here on the screen so y'all would know what questions I'm answering, no matter how much I ramble or accidentally get off topic on any issue. And then also because then if I have the question just like right there in front of me, then it holds me accountable. like don't veer off course, like it's this question, you have to answer it. Also I printed them out in the order I got them, but I shuffled them, so I don't know like what questions I'll be getting as I go, but let's just get started with that. So here is the first question. How have your feelings on all the characters in Amalgamate changed as you've written the story? What parts really made you rethink them? Yeah, so we're starting off with a banger right here. Yeah, so some of this I've probably talked about before in other videos, but I feel like this question is like, it's interesting by default because of the nature of how this fic even started, and then like the longer I work on the fic, like the more interesting this question becomes. So as some of you may or may not know, when I first started working on Amalgamate, like I want to say like as I was kind of like drafting a few different fic ideas. I don't know if I'd fully chosen the Amalgamate concept just yet, but I had very mixed opinions on Kaito, which I'm always like super embarrassed to admit now because I mean, like I'm literally writing a giant freaking fic about Kaito. Um, but yeah, I was coming from a very strange place with him. Um, and frankly, not just him, but I'll get to that in a moment. Because so when my roommates started playing V3, I was already not only like very familiar with the game, the number of like Let's Plays I watched at that point was like obscene. But I was already working on chapter 1 of Amalgamate, and I was kind of using like their playthrough as like a extra research, you know, like helping to refresh my memory and stuff. So I decided to be a bit of a troll, and when they started playing, I said to them, if I were to tell you that there is one character in V3 that I hate, who do you think it is? And it did not take long for them to decide it had to be Kaito. they were like, there is no universe in which Jamie can stand this guy. Because, you know, like they know me very well. And they know that, you know, I'm a very Kokichi-ish person, IRL. And so because of that, you know, a lot of the same things that drive Kokichi nuts about Kaito, you know, are things that would drive me nuts too. You know, it's like, for someone like me, it's like that lethal combination of like not just like hopeless optimism, but like that stubborn optimism where like you're ignoring things that are right in front of your face because you're just so like determined to be like this overly positive human. Like I'm very much like the Kokichi type. Like I'm cynical, I'm skeptical. And yeah, someone like Kaito would have me like kind of, you know, hissing like a cat a bit. And so yeah, his you know, overall bro personality, his just, you know, refusal to bend even when, you know, there was cold hard facts right in front of him, you know, stuff like that was, you know, the kind of things that would drive me nuts. So like, yeah, it didn't take long for my roommates to be like, it's got to be Kaito, she hates Kaito. And I was just laughing because, like I said, Amalgamate was already being written at that point. And it was a trick question that I gave them a little. I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, the reason that my opinions on Kaito had changed, and I think this is actually going to get addressed in a future question in this video, but for now, essentially, like, when I started working on this fic, I was actually attempting to make some Kokichi analysis videos, And so, you know, I was doing a lot of like this, like, you know, research and analysis with Kokichi, and in doing so was like learning a lot about Kaito and like noticing a lot of interesting things about him. And so like through that lens of studying Kokichi, not only was I like learning more about Kaito, but like I was like warming up to him a lot. Like my opinion of him just kept getting like better and better and better. Um, and so, um, yeah, but by the time I asked my roommates, who do you think I hate? The answer was definitely not Kaito, because I had already come around on him a lot. That being said, though, that's not to say that I didn't still have some mixed opinions on Kaito that also continued to like improve like as I worked on Amalgamate. Like the more time I kind of spent like in his head, the more I, you know, obviously came to adore Kaito. I went from dislike to mixed opinions to I die for this man. Um, but that being said, here's like a little extra plot twist. So when I was kind of trolling my roommates, asking who they think I hate, yeah, it wasn't Kaito, even though I knew they'd think that. The sort of correct answer would have been Maki. I think I was just really mad still. I was mad. I everything that happened in the fifth chapter of V3 left me feeling some type of way. I blamed her for what happened. I hated that she didn't seem to take enough, I don't want to say accountability, because she did. She did. Like, she absolutely, by the end of the fifth trial, was like, wow, I screwed up. More like, I didn't feel like she had really, like, maybe apologized as much as I would have wanted, or thought more about Kokichi's role in all of this as much as I would have wanted. And I realize I am being a little unfair here. Like, this was all coming from an emotional place of like, I'm upset about what happened to Kokichi. I'm mad, and I'm just taking all of it out on her. Which I think I've told this story before, but when my roommates were playing and they got to the part where you go into Kokichi's room and Maki shows up in chapter 6, I, like, all the anger finally just exploded out of me, and I started, like, screaming at the TV. I was like, I don't want her in here. Get her out of here. Like, I don't know. I got so mad. So yeah, it's, I don't know. It's a case where, like, yeah, like I said, with Kaito, like, I went into this, like, dislike to mixed opinions to the fic made me absolutely adore him. But I felt like that was, like, when I started, that felt like a thing that could definitely happen. Whereas, like, the Maki thing, like, boy, I'd never in a million years would have seen my future opinions of Maki coming, given how furious I was. That being said, Amalgamate has also made me adore Maki. She has truly become the like MVP of the fic. Yeah, I think there is a question someone asked that I'll probably get to later in the video, so I don't want to go on this topic too much right now, but yeah, I definitely, like, not only do I like adore Maki, but it's like, yeah, like the way that I see her now, I'm like, she is like the sort of like underappreciated hero of the fic. She's like just absolutely slaying the house down boots, and I love her. So yeah, I think those are definitely the two where my opinion changed a lot. I would also, though, want to add sort of Tsumugi to my answer to this question. In the sense that, like, don't get me wrong, I actually already, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I actually really liked her as a mastermind already when I started the fic. I thought she was just an interesting concept. I liked the idea of the mastermind of V3 being a Danganronpa fan. Like, it's just like, that's just like a fun meta narrative, and it's very intriguing, and I don't know, just her, I felt like she, despite, like, you know, most people feel like she did nothing, you know, like the whole story, like she was very boring. I don't actually feel that way. I think it's the fact that she was able to do so much without anyone noticing that makes her, like, yes, like boring during the game, but like super interesting as a character overall. The way she kind of like flexed these like nearly like godlike powers as an author over her characters and stuff is, it's all like really, really interesting. But yeah, like that being said, like she, you know, still is known as the character who like didn't like do anything that we could notice throughout the game. And so yeah, part of me still saw her as like, you know, boring, kind of the way I think a lot of people do. But like working on Amalgamate definitely changed that, because I don't know, I kind of maybe a little unintentionally like elevated her from boring plain Jane to like megalomaniacal supervillain. I don't know if that's quite what I set out to do, but I was kind of living for it, and so I leaned into it. But yeah, I think my opinion just on her as a viable active villain and stuff definitely shifted a lot in Amalgamate. But yeah, like I said, I do feel like there's parts of this question that other questions that were asked we'll kind of get into a bit more, so I'll set this one aside for now, and move on to the next one. Let's see, what have we got here? How much of the flashback lights were planned in advance, especially the smaller details like Mage or the tasks of the D.I.C.E killing game? Okay. Yeah, so this is also a very interesting question. So when it comes to the flashback lights, a lot was planned in advance, but like definitely like more like the broader strokes. So like, you know, things like the D.I.C.E killing game overall, and you know, the presence of Himiko's master being a part of the story, things like that. Like all of that was planned out in advance. Sometime I should like release like a big thing of like notes from throughout the process of writing the fic. Like there's even some interesting stuff like conversations I had with the beta reader, which by the way, Amalgamate was only beta read from like chapters like 9 through like 15 or something like that. Just because the beta reader is just like super busy. Like we're still friends. Like it's yeah, they didn't have time. So yeah, there's no beta reader right now. But yeah, actually part of the reason why I ended up from just like, I went from like just chatting with y'all probably have seen the name around in the fic, J.Kitty Doodles by Noodles on Tumblr, amazing artist, please look them up. Yeah, I went with like from like just chatting with them about ideas to full-blown beta reading in chapter 9 was in part because I was definitely not like confident about all the like searchlight stuff, and that's when that started. Because yeah, like I had the broader strokes, and we had kind of discussed some of my ideas. I had sort of been like info dumping a lot on J.Kitty. But yeah, like some of the details, you know, like that's when it gets a little trickier. So yeah, sometime I should really post some of that content, because like for example, like I wrote up a huge Google Doc that I sent J.Kitty like probably right before chapter 9, and it included like not only like all the like rules of the dice killing game, but like also like a detailed like day by day synopsis, like way more detailed than what happened in the fic. Like a lot of this stuff got intentionally left out of Amalgamate ultimately, but yeah, like a super detailed list of like every single thing that happened each day, like you know, who died, what went wrong, like, you know, yeah, it was pretty complicated. But yeah, I did stuff like that because I was worried that if I didn't have enough details figured out in advance, like I might accidentally run into some problems, like Tsumugi style. And I didn't want that. That being said, there's definitely some stuff that like was not as planned in advance. I'm trying to remember some good examples. I want to say like originally, like I definitely had the idea in my head of having Himiko's master be a member of D.I.C.E. I can't remember though if like his role was as extreme when I first started like drafting, or if it like became more extreme later. But yeah, there was definitely like certain things like that where like I, you know, had to wing it a little or like alter ideas that I had. But yeah, I as much as I could, I always tried to plan ahead with Amalgamate, just because like the plot is like it's like that kind of story where like, you know, one cog slips in the machine and the whole thing fails. So yeah, I definitely planned a lot in advance, and I hope to release some of that info later if I can. Actually, the timing on this question is kind of perfect though, because I just remembered literally just yesterday I was having a massive cleaning day, and I actually shared this on the Discord server. I took a photo, I should probably scan it, but while I was cleaning, I found a list of just like hastily scribbled notes I had written at some point while working on Amalgamate, and they actually detailed an earlier idea that was completely scrapped, where like I had been trying to figure out exactly how I wanted the final trial to get like launched, like initiated, and how to make sure Kaito, of course, gets, you know, executed, because that was like the crux of Kokichi's plan was the rocket idea. And so yeah, this like list of notes I had written was detailing this idea of like having Kibo meet up with Kaito and Kokichi in that flashback light setup room, and then after he gets all the plan, you know, and he's got his backup drive already, like, you know, he's, you know, good to go with that, but like they would have Kaito, I don't want to say kill, but like make it look like a kill, but like essentially like shut Kibo down, and it would like count as a kill. And then that would like launch the final trial of like who killed Kibo, and like Kokichi would try to like pretend like he did it to kind of further his mastermind persona, and like obviously Kaito would have to take the fall in the end though to like get the rocket thing to happen. But I feel like the reason I scrapped this idea should be fairly obvious. I hated the idea of Kibo just not being in the final trial. Like that's just no. After everything that they've been through, like the thought of like poor Kibo not participating in the final trial, I was like, ugh, it's horrible. So yeah, it's it was like an interesting idea. It was me just testing out possibilities, but yeah, it definitely was not like a good idea. So yeah, stuff like that, like there are certain details that were not planned out fully in advance because I had to like toy around with things that, you know, were smaller details. But yeah, a lot was planned in advance though. Let's see what else we've got here. What is the next question. Like I said, I shuffled these, so I actually don't like know what the questions are. You've said before that Amalgamate was basically an essay in the form of a fanfic. Do you think you succeeded in making the points you wanted to make about Kokichi? Yes. Well, yeah, to avoid getting myself into any needless drama here, yes, it is a thing that, part of what caused Amalgamate to happen was that I watched some videos on YouTube about Kokichi that I did not care for. Many of you may know what I'm talking about because there was recently an amazing rebuttal video made about said videos. Please go look up Goose's you know what? Let me see, what is the exact name of it? By the way, Goose is spelled Hjonkgoose. Yeah, in defense of Kokichi Oma, a response to a certain someone whose name I'm avoiding because I don't want drama right now. But yeah, please go watch it. It's amazing. It's very good. Please. Yeah, I was writing some videos, of Kokichi analysis videos that were in part going to be a response to that. And the reason I didn't end up fully going through with it, although a lot of people want me to, they're like, release the cut. Maybe I will. I still have all that stuff like saved. It's just like not polished or anything. You know, part of it's just like I didn't really know how to make a video. Like outside of me cosplaying and lip syncing to stupid music, I don't know how to make videos. So yeah, I just decided not to go that route at the time. But also maybe it was because of how much my opinion of Kaito had been shifting that this kind of like got stuck in my head. But I also just thought like the idea of making a lot of those points through the lens of a fanfic, as in through the lens of like being in the story, actively making those points like through the characters, at the characters, that kind of thing. I don't know, I just thought that was super interesting, and I thought it would be a good approach, so that's what I ended up doing instead. That being said, I say that way too often, by the way, sorry. My brain doesn't work super well when I have to like think and talk at the same time and then also draw at the same time. Like I'm just bad at all of this. But yeah, do you think you succeeded in making the points you wanted to make about Kokichi? Yeah, actually, surprisingly, I think so. I mean, there's always more that can be said. You know, I could probably just like infinitely analyze Kokichi and constantly come up with new things, think of new things. He's just that kind of super intriguing character. And there were certainly parts of the original essays I had been working on that just wouldn't have a place in Amalgamate. I remember I had a whole section about the death road of despair, which just wouldn't come up in Amalgamate. Some like, you know, talk about, you know, how people love to compare Kokichi with like Nagito Komaeda, like stuff like that, like wouldn't be an Amalgamate. So, you know, it's not to say that I covered every point one-to-one between those essays and Amalgamate, but I do think like overall of all the points I wanted to make about Kokichi, I definitely managed to cover most of them, and I hope I did it well. I really tried. I felt like making those points by kind of like getting Kaito to analyze Kokichi would be interesting, because not only is that like my way of like analyzing, like actively analyzing Kokichi, because Kaito is, but also of course, like I was saying earlier, Kaito learns a lot about himself, because in analyzing Kokichi you often accidentally end up also analyzing Kaito. So yeah, I definitely, like, as much as I tend to be like very self-deprecating, I'm pretty happy with a lot of the points I was able to make about Kokichi in Amalgamate. I think the scene that stands out to me the most is in chapter 4, when Kaito and Kokichi, they're in the exisal, and yeah, I want to say it was like at the very end of chapter 4. Everything's kind of going to hell, and Kokichi ends up he grabs the mic and starts doing a big old villain persona act, and it triggers some thoughts in Kaito's head where he realizes that Kokichi cares. That whole scene, where it's like, it's not even so much that he's just doing guesswork, it's like he's looking back on things that happened in canon in the game, and the evidence is like piling up in his head, and realizing like it's not even so much that these were signs that Kokichi cared, it was like none of that would even work or make sense if he didn't. You know what I mean? So like yeah, it was like Kaito having this big realization that like Kokichi literally had to care and did care, and that kind of changes everything from that moment onwards in Amalgamate. And like, as much as I'm always one of those people where I'm like, I screwed up everything, everything's bad, I should have done this better, that better, blah blah blah, I was really happy with how that scene turned out, because I do think it like really did get my point across about a lot of things with Kokichi, and in doing so I feel like that is the scene where, like, even if Kaito and Kokichi did not like amalgamate until chapter 16, I feel like chapter 4 is like when it started. Like that moment right there is when the two of them began to truly join forces, like in more ways than just, oh, we're both in this situation, if that makes sense. So let's see, what is the next question? This has already been going on for more than 30 minutes. I'm so sorry. I'm so rambly, and it takes me forever to say anything. I hope that y'all find it interesting and are not bored and annoyed with me. Okay, next question. Who was your favorite character to write? Well, I mean, I am biased, so like, of course, like, I've always gonna love writing Kokichi. I mean, just, you know, he's my boy. Like, I adore writing him. I adore his sense of humor, his snark. I like that, like, everything that he says just like has so many like weird little layers to it. I think he's such an absolute delight to write. I do feel though that is probably like not a very interesting answer, and also is not like completely the best answer, because I ended up enjoying writing characters I didn't expect to enjoy so much. And I think the best example of that would be Maki, for sure. I was dreading having to write her. I didn't even know how I was gonna do it. Like, I was so enraged still with her when I started Amalgamate that I was like, how am I gonna be fair? Because I have to be fair, first of all, and also like I'm a big proponent of like, don't bring others down even when you disagree with them. So like, that thought was always in my head of like, you know, just because I have opinions on Maki at the moment, don't write something that's gonna hurt Maki fans. Like, that's terrible. Like, I'm never out to do that. So I wanted to be super fair for that reason, but also because if you're gonna write from Kaito's POV, like, he's not gonna see Maki the way that I do. That's for darn sure. So I was really dreading it because I was like, how do I avoid seeming biased? Like, I'm not going to want to write her. Is she going to accidentally, like, drift to the back of scenes just because, like, I don't want to deal with her? I thought writing her very, like, stoic personality would be just boring, to be honest. And wow, that is not what happened. By the end of the trial, I was really starting to find her interesting to write. You know, once she like changed and started, like, when she like lied for Kaito and Kokichi at the end of the trial, like she started turning it all around. That kind of stoic nature of hers actually made writing her more interesting because there was sort of this like almost Kokichi-ish puzzle to her of like, what is she really thinking? What is she actually feeling? And especially like chapter 6, 7, 8, like I really started to notice it, and I really started to enjoy writing Maki to the extent that when there was that recent V3 chapter 5 zine, you know, they reached out to me to write a one-shot, which I did. It's on, if you go to my Dr. Highfish AO3 account, not only is this fic there, but I considered a part of Amalgamate, actually. I put them together in like a Amalgamate like series thing. Yeah, they said like, okay, pick a character that you want to write, and I knew everyone would think, oh, Jamie's gonna pick Kokichi, and I think it was a combination of I didn't want to do the obvious thing, and also just like I wanted to like try out, you know, something new. I picked Maki. I actually actively was like, I'm gonna write Maki by choice. Like, what a personal plot twist that was for me. What a timeline I ended up on. Because yeah, I really have started to enjoy writing her. She's super interesting. But I also do want to give a shout out to Tsumugi on that one as well. She was another one where I thought I was not going to enjoy writing her, just because, like, you know, like, not only is she like kind of like a plain Jane, but like she can be like a little annoying about it, like the constant forcing of the word plain into everything, and like and the way that I knew like I'd have to have her like actively, you know, hurting my babies while acting like she isn't. Like, I thought I was just gonna hate it so much, but like, I don't know, I actually ended up loving it, which sounds so bad. It's not that I wanted to like write a character like harming these poor kids. It's just that she was becoming like so diabolical in Amalgamate that it was like becoming like entertaining, like the same way that like a purely evil like Disney villain becomes entertaining, you know, where it's like you just kind of like love to hate them so much. Yeah, she was becoming that for me. Just so despicable that it was like entertaining. Yeah, I think love to hate is the best way to put it. So yeah, shout out to Tsumugi. Anyway, moving on. Next one. Longer one here. How do you go about researching the more real-world elements of Amalgamate, like making sure everything is medically accurate to a reasonable extent? Yeah, so this is a very timely question, given that I'm working on chapter 20 right now. Yeah, so being accurate was very important to me. As much as things could be accurate when you're, you know, writing a DR fic, which, you know, is kind of forced to be a little fantastical by nature. But I remember when I first started writing Amalgamate, the word I kept using, I kept telling people I want to tell a very grounded canon divergence of V3. And so that meant that, like, yeah, there was like a certain amount of like fantastical stuff that was not gonna happen, or like times where I'd be like super emphasizing often brutally realistic things. Because really, when you think about it, the very premise of Amalgamate is rooted in that. Because all of this started because I, wanted to figure out a way out of the canon chapter 5 catch-22, and my idea came from the fact that, like, Strike 9 appeared to be based on Strike based on Strychnine, and Strychnine is an actual poison. It is very real. And so the fic happened in large part because I was like, okay, let's say it really is Strychnine, which it seems to be. Like, some of the symptoms even that Kokichi had in canon, I was like, yeah, that is Strychnine. Like, he's, having a hard time breathing. Like, he seemed to be having, like, moments where he was, like, seizing up in the closing argument, sweating, like, all those things. I was like, yeah, that is Strychnine. So I ended up doing a lot of research on Strychnine because, of course, I wanted to know, like, is this survivable? Like what if they just wrote it out? Is that a thing that could happen? And it turned out that the answer to that was super complicated. Like, I swear, like, every article I read gave me very conflicting info about the survivability of Strychnine, and so because of that, like, I was getting into the weeds with it. Like, I started off just reading, like, vague, articles about it, and it turned into me reading, like, medical journals where I could barely understand, like, any of the jargon, but I was doing my best, because I really, really wanted an answer. And it was so tricky, especially because, like, if you search Strychnine, a lot of times you actually end up on articles that are not about whether or not humans can survive it, but pets, which I think me having to read a lot of that is why Amalgamate did end up with, like, some of those, like, uncomfortable anecdotes from Kaito about, like, the cat and, that stuff, and the rat poison, and, yeah, it's because I kept ending up on, like, veterinarian pages. But I think it's just because these days, this wasn't always the case, but these days it's just very rare for a human to encounter Strychnine, whereas, like, an animal can be very easily exposed to it via, like, pesticides and stuff. But yeah, that wasn't always true. There was a time when, like, actually Strychnine was a pretty common thing with humans, and so yeah, there's definitely still articles out there about, what to expect with that, but yeah, I had to read so much info about it, and it was super unpleasant. I wouldn't say I, like, enjoy any of that, but I'll do it for my boy. And yeah, boy, there was so much conflicting info, though. It was like one article would be like, yeah, if you get exposed to Strychnine, yeah, you'll be dead in 30 minutes. And I was like, what? If that was true, then, like, even canon V3 couldn't have happened. And then, like, other articles would be like, yeah, like, if you get exposed to it, but you go to a hospital, like, you'll be totally fine in 24 hours. Like, it was hard to tell, but I think that actually drove me to, like, really double down, where it's like, because it was so hard to get such accurate info on Strychnine, like, every single medical thing for the rest of the fic, I was like, I'm gonna deep dive. I'm gonna read everything and get this as close to accurate as I possibly can, no matter what the subject is. But that is how I go about it, is like, yeah, I look up articles, but I never just read one. Like, I'm very determined to, like, always, like, get as much info as I can. So I'll usually read, like, a dozen different articles, and then I will read, like, some medical journal stuff, even though, like I said, I usually can barely understand any of it because all these, like, big scary words that I don't know. But yeah, that has been my approach so far, and that is definitely what I've had to do quite a lot of for chapter 20, for obvious reasons. I was just doing that yesterday, in fact. For spoiler reasons, I will not say what it was that I was looking up, but I was definitely researching a very particular topic in depth that required me to do a couple hours of reading about unpleasant topics, because yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why chapter 20 has been taking me a while, is like it's very like emotionally exhausting. Like these are definitely not topics that I like particularly want to be writing. Like I'm doing it for their sake, of course, for my babies, but yeah, I'm kind of a softie. Like that stuff makes me pretty uncomfortable. But I'm doing my best. I'm powering through it. But yeah, let's see. What is the next one? What was your favorite reference slash quote you wrote into Amalgamate? I actually just got this question. I was like a couple hours from like sitting down to start filming this when I got this question, and I was like, ooh, that's a good one. Yes, perfect timing. And I'm guessing this one came up because actually this was something that I had been talking about on the server. Because yeah, as I'm sure you've all noticed, I sure like putting a lot of references in the fic. I don't know if that's just my inner Tsumugi coming through or what. Or maybe just her presence alone is like triggering the need for pointless references and quotes. I hope I'm not accidentally re-answering this question for this person, given that it was something I was talking about on the server, but there was a couple lines in the final trial, like, so I think this actually would have been, yeah, at the end of chapter 19, where Kokichi made two references that I had been like planning and like looking forward to like forever, to the extent that I kind of joked about it in an earlier chapter where like Kaito was like, now, you know, during the big climax, you better not like make any stupid movie quotes or anything and ruin the moment. And that was like me like already knowing I was definitely gonna do that. And just kind of laughing at myself. So yeah, the two I'll mention was so this first one was just because I just was happy I could get this reference into anything. The part where Kokichi has the gun, that stupid gun, and he says, you know, killing a person ain't no big deal. You just put the gun to their head, pow. That is a direct quote from Silent Hill 2, which is basically my favorite game of all time. So I was determined to get that reference in there. Yeah, those of you who have played that game, you probably know, like, yeah, that was from Eddie before that boss fight. I just always thought that line was hilarious, like the way it was delivered. Like, I don't care what anyone says. I love the voice acting in that game. Don't at me. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that remake that's coming out right now because y'all don't want to hear my opinions on that. I'll get heated and I don't want to, so I'm just gonna shut up. But yeah, I absolutely love Silent Hill 2 to the extent that there is a fic I am planning after Amalgamate. It is a V3 VR AU that is directly inspired by Silent Hill 2. So yeah, I think that made that quote extra exciting for me, that I already knew I was like going to be doing some like, you know, V3 Silent Hill 2 action in the future. So I was like, yeah, let's get this Eddie quote in here. It'll be awesome. The other one I wanted to mention was the line that Kokichi says to Tsumugi right before he shines the flashback light at her, that well, no, he had already used the flashback light, but it was, you know, he had that grape candy that was going to trigger the searchlight that would send them back into his room, and, you know, she would be poisoned. Like, it would convince her a little bit that, like, she had just suffered through a whole bunch of strychnine poisoning, which, you know, was partly because Kokichi just didn't want her to hear what any of them were saying. Like, he needed her, like, conveniently, like, knocked out. But also, like, he was being very vengeful, and I don't blame him. So the line where he says, is something like, I have something for you. I don't want it anymore. 30 hours of pain all at once, all for you. That is a direct quote from The Crow, one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't want to spoil that scene from The Crow, but definitely, you know, obviously I'm also just recommending the movie in general because it's an amazing movie, but I will say that the scene has some very eerie parallels to what Kokichi did to Tsumugi in that moment. And it wasn't so much that I was inspired by that scene. I actually don't think that's at all where the idea came from for Kokichi to do that to Tsumugi. But upon, like, realizing how similar the concepts were, I was like, oh, hell yeah. So that's why I had to have Kokichi quote that line, because it was just too perfect. I think the only other reference I will mention, because I don't want to bore y'all to tears here. I I don't know why, but I just really loved what Kokichi called Kaito All Might. And I think it's for similar reasons, where, like, the joke had not occurred to me at any point until that moment, like, suddenly, and then I was like, oh my god, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. So, I don't know, I was very pleased with that one. Also, yeah, I mean, okay, I know I said I was done, but yeah, also, Kokichi, when he woke up and was like, have they released Half-Life 3 yet? That made me very happy. Oh, and when he compared, Mother Kuma to Genova. Sorry. That also made me very happy. I'm a big, Final Fantasy fan, and, I think that joke was funny to me because that was, like, my first thought when I saw Mother Kuma in the game. I was like, is this, like, supposed to be, like, a Genova reference? And then when they were like, yeah, it's called Mother Kuma, I was like, okay, so it is a Genova reference. I don't know. Maybe, probably. It wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, I really liked that one too. But anyway, yeah, I should release, like, a list of like, all the references throughout Amalgamate, because, like, otherwise, like, yeah, I could be here all day about this subject. So, and actually some people have asked me to do that, like, make a list of all the references. So yeah, that is something I might be able to do after the fic is completely over. But anyway, what is the next question? Do you have to make us suffer like this? Well, I mean, I suppose technically no, but then we wouldn't have much of a story. I guess the only, like, I hope that's, like, some consolation that, like, y'all, I suffer just as much, and I don't mean that in an author way. Like, I'm not saying, like, ugh, I slave away at the story, I'm suffering. No, not at all. I mean that, like, if something happens in the fic that you find upsetting, I guarantee I also found it extremely upsetting. There are definitely some scenes where I'm like, I don't even know how I wrote this, because, like, it's so outside the realm of what I'm, like, emotionally able to do with these kids. Like, I'm such a freaking softie. Like, I think I've mentioned this before, but I will not read any fics where I know Kokichi's gonna die. I just, like, won't. Like, I mean, obviously there's, like, some exceptions. Like, if I can tell it's, like, some kind of hanger fic where, like, the inevitable is gonna happen, I think my brain is able to just tell myself, it was VR, it's fine. Even if this fic doesn't go there, you know, it just ends with him being dead. Like, you know, in my head, I'm like, no, he's fine, everything's fine. So, yeah, I can get away with some of that, but, like, other than that, like, I used to, like, make myself read fics where Kokichi died, and at a certain point, I realized it was, like, genuinely, like, screwing me up. Like, I couldn't keep doing it, so, yeah, I'm actually, like, a huge softie, and maybe, like, a bit of a baby, to be honest, when it comes to this stuff. So, yeah, I guarantee, like, I also, for better or for worse, like, I do suffer, too. I do think that is part of the reason chapter 20 has been taking a long time. I can't work on certain parts of it for too long, or, like, it is, like, a bit too much for me. I don't like to see these kids like that. Like, it's not fun for me. It's upsetting, and I do it because, you know, of course it makes for a good story, it makes for good drama, but, like, at the same time, it's, you know, I do have my limits, and yeah, so I apologize for all the suffering. I swear, I just do it to make the story better, and also because it is the most realistic way to get them to that better ending that they so deserve. So yeah, but still apologies for all the suffering. Okay, moving on. Oh geez, the next one. This one's so silly. I'm thinking we're about to hit the hour mark, so maybe I'll end with this one, and then we'll do a part 2. I'm just gonna keep filming, but I'll break it into 2 videos. When do Kaito and Kokichi kiss? Sorry. Had to take a drink to even get myself to say anything here. I think actually more than one person asked that question. Well, I mean, I don't want to, like, disappoint anybody, but I mean, the actual technical answer here is I mean, they're not going to. I'm sorry. I guess the real answer would be, if you think that they will, then whenever it happens is totally cool, and that's up to you. But when I started writing the fic, I did set out to tell a story that could be read as either platonic or has the potential to become something more. Like, maybe there's more blossoming here. But I never wanted the fic to lose the ability to be read as platonic if someone wants that, because I do think there is something to be said for a story like this where, like, not to sound cheesy, but, like, friendship, the power of friendship is, like, just as valid, if that makes sense. Because it really is a story about, like, a bunch of people who were not fully united in canon, like, kind of forming that bond, that group unity, and friendship is magic. So yeah, I don't want the fic to lose that platonic angle that it can have. But also, like, I don't mind if people, like, are reading into it not being platonic. Like, I've mentioned before, like, I don't avoid the vibes either. You know, like if there's a scene where, like, Kaito and Kokichi are having, like, just amazing chemistry, I mean, I'm not, like, going out of my way to not keep writing it that way either. Like, you know, I can see that they have that chemistry and stuff, like, you know, so yeah, like, if it seems like sometimes some scenes feel like they're straddling, no pun intended, that line between romantic and platonic, like, I'm not, like, unaware of that, and I don't, like, fight against it either. But yeah, but because of that, like, will they officially kiss? No, I'm sorry. But they've had some great hugs, and I promise, the hugging is not done. There will be more wonderful hugs in their future. And also this here is goals. I want this to happen. So also that, yeah. But anyway, this video has now reached an hour, and there's still a few questions left. So I will pause it here, and then upload a part 2 so that I don't bore you all to death. And also I don't think I'll be able to finish all of this beyond like the sketching, ink sketching part in the next video. You know, things like coloring and stuff like that. I think I'll I'll either do that just on my own time, or if I suppose I could always do just a chat video in general, like not a Q&A, but just an overall chat maybe after chapter 20 where I color this or something, but we'll see. I'll play it by ear. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go for the moment, and then I hope that you enjoyed this enough to want to watch part 2. Yeah. Okay, bye.